Oh, hello there, everyone. It's Warren Hayes once again, and we are going to be talking about AEW Dynamite because it is Thursday. That is what we do on Thursdays here. We recap the previous night's Dynamite. We go through everything. We talk about the newsy bits and the not so newsy bits. Maybe less about the not newsy bits, because the newsy bits are interesting. If it's not news, if it's not newsworthy, it's probably not interesting, right? But then again, this all goes through my filter. So maybe there's things that I find interesting that you don't. And you're like, Warren, why are you talking so much about this? I mean, this happens, actually. Why is he talking so much about this specific little detail? Look, get your own show. Why am I so mad? There's no reason for me to be. We're going to have a good time here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes if this is where you're watching it. Please consider giving a like and a subscription to the channel as well. Those things would be fantastic and extremely helpful. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, 5-star ratings on Spotify, 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. You know the deal. And I appreciate your patronage on either platform, in whichever way you desire to consume this. It is very much appreciated. Boy, what a show. Where this June 21st Dynamite, kicking off the summer season. Lots of stuff happening. Today we're recording this on the Thursday, which is what we usually do. So it is June 22nd at this point. But we're going to get into it. But before we get into the card, I mean, this specifically, right, was the go-home show. It was the AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door 2 go-home show. And we pretty much have this entire card set up here. We have let's run through it just before we do it. I mean, this is technically my go-home show, right? No, I'm going to do the Collision review. So it's not technically. Look, sue me. We're going to talk about it. Really quickly, of course, we're going to get Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. Just, how much more do we need to push to push this situation, this match? They had one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time last January at Wrestle Kingdom. Excuse me. The bar is extremely high for this match, and I'm extremely excited that I'm getting to see it live. Bryan Danielson versus Kazuchika Okada. I sold the praises of this match on the podcast this past Tuesday, but from a very personal perspective, because like I said, it doesn't happen very often. I would say, in a human being's life, a human being who is a pro wrestling fan, of course, that will have the opportunity to see a truly seminal match, to see something that is extremely significant, to see two of the greatest wrestlers of all time go on and put on, and who are still in their prime, who are not shadows of their past selves, that are able to go out there and have, still right now, highly competitive, work rate focused matches that will be brilliant in this these are two brilliant wrestling minds on top of it all. So I'm excited to see this, and I feel privileged to see it, despite the fact that I shelled out money for tickets. It's not as if anyone, I still feel privileged. I still feel, this is a highlight for a canon event. For those of you who are in the know, as far as my wrestling fandom goes. And this is happening again at Forbidden Door 2. Sonata will be defending the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship against the Jungle Boy Jack Perry alongside Hook. MJF will be facing Hiroshi Tanahashi. I don't know why we suddenly decided that that we could pull this swerve into making this title shot or facing Hiroshi Tanahashi for the real AEW World title with CM Punk. Maybe it's just because we're all really wrestling brained and we're all very weary about CM Punk, and we're like, wouldn't put it past him to weasel his way into this, but this is not what we're doing here today. We're sticking to the plan, and I will continue to say, because I know a lot of people are saying, oh, that was the plan last year, CM Punk versus Tanahashi, but CM Punk got injured. I'm like, so they're going to do it this year. I'm like, there's always context. And I think last year would have been a lot more fun than this year. And quite frankly, MJF versus Tanahashi is a far more compelling match from two guys who are brilliant storytellers. Again, two brilliant wrestling minds that are just going to, they're going to tell a wonderful story. Tanahashi's not, again, he might surprise us, but, the decline of Hiroshi Tanahashi and his health is a real thing. He won't be able to, do the high profile, high energy, high octane match here, but that's not the point. The point here is MJF entirely disrespectful of New Japan and, the New Japan nerds and so on and so forth. And Tanahashi coming in and saying, hey, you bastard, and who is regarded as one of the greatest of all time as well, coming in, hey, you punk, do you know who you're talking to, kind of thing. And I can appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. I think it's a great story. It's probably the greatest story they could be telling in this circumstance here, in this, in the circumstance of the rest of this card is what I'm trying to say. And MJF has all the tools to make this really good, because he's fantastic. He keeps saying, I don't do it for the 5-star matches, but then look at his output so far this year. He's been nothing but incredible. And he's going to get the win here. And then he's going to be able to continue going down this route where he's saying, I'm the greatest wrestler of all time because I'm beating all the greatest wrestlers of all time. And this is what's eventually going to lead us into CM Punk, but conversation for another time. Les Suzuki Gods. Chris Jericho, Minoru Suzuki, and Sammy Guevara will be taking on Sting, Darby Allin, and a mystery opponent to be announced later. During last night's Dynamite, Sting and Darby Allin were challenged by Chris Jericho to fight Guevara, and Suzuki in a trios match. Sting and Darby Allin came out and they said, don't worry, we have our third guy. And Jericho's like, who's the third guy? And Sting was like, or Darby, I don't remember who said it exactly, but one of them said, oh yeah, well, you've made enemies, pretty much everywhere, so you have a history of making enemies or something to that effect, right? So everyone's like, oh, who could it be? And to me, I think the logical, like when he said that, I was like, it's Naito. Like, Tanahashi's in a match, and who else has had a high profile feud with Chris Jericho in New Japan? It's Tetsuya Naito. There were even titles involved. And those great promos, those great pre-tapes with Jericho and Naito, like, it was just, I remember it fondly. So it would make a lot of sense and will be a nice surprise. I'll cheer extra loud if I get to hear Starlight. What's it called? Stardust, not Starlight. Stardust, his theme, which is in the conversation of greatest wrestling themes of all time, right? In the conversation of those, we get the usual rigmarole. We get Steve Austin's theme and so on. But seldom do we get Stardust, Tetsuya Naito's theme, which is unequivocally, unabashedly one of the best wrestling themes that I have ever heard. That is so perfect and gets you into it. I don't know. Is it because it's a little too EDM that, the typical rock sensibilities aren't, I don't know. Well, what do you guys think? And gals and non-binary pals, who do you all think is the best? What do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments if you're on YouTube. Get in the Discord and let me know if you're there. Link is in the description if you want to join the Discord. The Blackpool Combat Club will also be on hand. Mox, Yuta, and Claudio. Alongside tall, dark, and sexy Konosuke Takeshita, and bringing in John's other son, Shota Umino. The roughneck, the shooter, he said. Shooter Shota Umino. They'll be taking on the Elite, Eddie Kingston, and Tomohiro Ishii. This is a match that all came together last night on Dynamite, with Eddie Kingston revealing that Tommy Ish would be the fifth man. Don't get me wrong, this match is going to be a fucking blast. This is going to rule. And I don't care who you are. I've been seeing a lot of, we're getting a lot of trios matches. Like, are we? Are we? From what I'm looking at here, we have 2. And we're getting all of this star power into this match. All of these fantastic human beings. Let's pump the brakes here. This is great. I am stoked for this. CM Punk will be taking on Satoshi Kojima in I guess it's the opening salvo of the men's Owen Hart Cup tournament first round. There's a whole tale going around this, right? A lot of conflicting reports. But, everyone was sort of thinking, are we going to get CM Punk versus Kenta, right? And Kenta had been teasing this for weeks. And then it turns out we're not going to get it. I had heard that CM Punk was uninterested and didn't want to do it. So he was offered Kojima and another wrestler instead. The other wrestler hasn't been reported, so I'll hold that back. Because I'm not a scoopster. News is not. Opinion is my thing, not scoops. But so we got Kojima, which is great. I mean, Kojima, low key, also one of the greatest to ever do it. A fantastic pro wrestler. And you have Kenta. Meanwhile, the other report that we were getting is that Kenta didn't want to do it. Kenta wasn't all that interested. And then he pulled out and was like, nah, I'm not going to do this. And, listen, Kenta isn't exactly, we keep making, pulling some gags, some jokes, some memes on CM Punk's physical condition. But, Kenta's not exactly, he's not exactly an invincible body specimen anymore. He's got his injuries. He's got his issues. He's bubble wrapped. Maybe he's like, this isn't worth it. Look, the point here is that neither guy was really interested in working with the other guy. What this comes off to me as is Tony Khan really wanted this match. He really wanted Kenta versus CM Punk because he knows how much interest it would generate from the fans. But it just never worked out. And look, it could be as simple as Kenta not wanting to do the JOB to CMP. It could be just as simple as that. And don't put it past Kenta to pull a, that's not going to work for me, brother. It's kind of part of his reputation, too. So we're getting Kojima and CM Punk, and that'll be fun. It'll be a fun time. I'm glad to be able to see Satoshi Kojima on this event as well. Then we get a 4-way match for the AEW International Championship. Champion Orange Cassidy will be defending against Zack Sabre Jr., Katsuyori Shibata, and Daniel Garcia. Again, a match that was finalized on Dynamite last night. I'm a little disappointed. I'm just a little disappointed because I was really looking forward to Orange Cassidy and Zack Sabre Jr. having a one-on-one. You know, with how great the Ospreay match was last year with Cassidy and the great run that Cassidy's been on, the fantastic run that Cassidy's been on, and Zack as well. I thought, like, I was really looking forward to the battle of the workhorses, you know. I mean, you know, you all know how I feel about 4-ways, multi-man matches for championships. I think Cassidy retains in this circumstance here. But you know what? It could have been just as simple as, you know, we all get excited as fans, of course, for shows like this, for crossover shows like this, because, you know, dream matches and new possibilities, new matches, things that we really. But these are probably extremely difficult to put together because of the politics involved, right? Because I can absolutely see Tony and Gedo sitting down face to face and, you know, talking about this match, and maybe even Orange Cassidy and Zack Sabre Jr. are pushing for it. And Tony's like, well, my guy has to win. But Gedo's like, well, my guy has to win. And Tony's like, well, my guy's a champion. And Gedo's like, well, my guy's a champion. Why don't you have your guy drop the title before? Why don't you have you guy drop the title before? Like, I feel like this is a political concession. I think the one-on-one would have been better. I think we would have gotten it if either one of the guys wasn't the champion. But the fact here is that, you know, neither promotion wants their champion to lose, which is why having a match like Bryan Danielson versus having a beltless Kazuchika Okada is allowing us a match with Bryan Danielson, and that we don't know what the outcome is and who cares. It's just going to be a great match. That's why we look at Sonata versus Jack Perry and MJF versus Tanahashi, and we're like, okay, these are no-brainers. Tony Storm will be fighting Willow Nightingale. It's going to be the AEW Women's World Championship that's going to be on the line. And that has nothing to do with the strong title. This was probably, right? I mean, if we're being completely honest with each other, this was probably the Mercedes Moné match, right? This was most likely the thing. I think we can all agree on that. Would it have been Tony? Would it have been Jamie? I mean, you know, whatever the outcome, I think either woman would have been great. And I think Tony Storm, I would even go as far as to say that Tony Storm versus Mercedes Moné would have been a safer, more exciting bet than Jamie. No disrespect. Tony is just a fantastic all-around worker. Jamie's great. She's extraordinary as well. I don't know. Both would have been really good. There's another match that was announced, but it's a spoiler. And I know I don't usually go in spoilers, right? I don't usually do spoilers. Should I do it? Right, everyone who doesn't want this to be spoiled, skip forward like 15 seconds, because I don't have many thoughts on it, okay? Skip forward 15 seconds starting now. The extra match that was added is Adam Cole versus Filthy Tom Lawler, which came together on Rampage, so I'm curious to see how that comes together. Spoiler time is done. And we also have a pre-show match where we're going to get the opening salvo of the Women's Owen Hart Cup tournament, with Athena taking on Billy Starks, who's crossing the border and coming over to see us. That's awesome. That warms me old heart. Look. Let me pull this up here. I just had a thought. Forbidden Door last year, right? Mess of a card. Right? It was absolutely a disaster, right? Because of the injuries, you had to reshuffle stuff. We were a far cry from what was planned, right? Main event, Jon Moxley and Hiroshi Tanahashi. We had the four-way for the World Championship, Jay White, Adam Page, Okada, Adam Cole, Claudio versus Zack Sabre Jr. Will Ospreay and Orange Cassidy, Thunder Rosa, Tony Storm, the dudes with attitudes. And versus El Fantasma and the Bucks. Pac and Clark Connors. There was a 4-way, right, for the All-Atlantic title, right? Pac becoming the first champ. Clark Connors, Miro, Malachi Black. Look, the card was all over the place. And this is, and it was still considered to be, by many, the best pay-per-view of the year in 2022. It was a fantastic show. Turned out to be outstanding. A great show. That's become part of the pay-per-view cycle for AEW. Despite the fact, like I said, the card was a bit of a mess and, with injuries and whatnot. And, not the card that Tony Khan was hoping for, despite giving us a great show. I think we have the opposite this year. As far as the card goes, we haven't seen the show yet. But we have a top to bottom, far superior card. Far superior show. Just on paper than last year, it's much better. So it can only go up from here, right? Right? All right, let's get into Dynamite. June 26th, Chicago, Illinois, Wintrust Arena. WrestleTix says 6,010. That was updated 2 days ago, right? 3 days ago. So, there might be a final count coming out a little earlier today. But 6,010 is pretty good. That's, they had opened up 6,300. I'm pretty sure that they had to be close to a sellout. Didn't they say that the Wintrust had been sold out? Didn't Excalibur say that? Good for them. That was a good, solid gate for New Japan, for AEW. Would have also, these days would have been a solid day for New Japan, a solid game for New Japan as well. Started off with the Guns defeating the Hardys. This was fine. I got it out of the way from the get-go, which I appreciated. Got the Hardys in front of a hot Chicago crowd. They were crazy for the Hardys. They always are. This was all about the Hardy Boys getting their spots in. Had a heat segment from the Guns. Look, nothing overwhelming. Nothing crazy good. And just like, okay, well, this is happening. This is all about the Hardys, like I said, getting their spots in. Jeff goes to do a swanton, but the Bullet Club Gold arrive. Jay White pushes Jeff off the top, avoiding a swanton, which allows the Guns to win. But then after the match, and this is the story of it, the Bullet Club Gold beat up on the Hardys some more. Ricky Starks runs in, but he gets overwhelmed because the Guns are there as well. So everyone, there's 4 guys. It's 4 on 1. Then FTR run in. They get overwhelmed too. So they get beat up a little bit. It's a little long. It's like, hang on. Oh, there's a certain chant that starts popping up in the crowd. Well, guess what? CM Punk runs in and clears house. And that sets up a match on Collision that he sets up. And he says, I'm not even supposed to be here, he says. It's a match, an 8-man tag. Him, FTR, and Ricky Starks against the Guns and Bullet Club Gold. This is happening on Collision this week. Fun angle. I thought this was a hot opening segment overall. Like, the crowd was super into it. They're into the Hardys. Like, I could do without Hardy Boys matches in the year of our Lord 2023. Absolutely. I could do without the Guns. I don't think they're, special. And I know that's part of their gimmick. That's part of the thing they do. And it's not supposed to be special. But what are you going to do? It was all right. It was fine. Then we went into the concession stand brawl, where Mark Briscoe defeated Jeff Jarrett. This was a blast. See, to me, this was the opposite of what I saw previously. This was just, a hoot. It was a hootenanny, and I just enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And we're starting in the concession area. We're not fighting towards the concession area. No. We've got poor Paul Turner, who's there trying to keep Mark and Jarrett separated while he just lays down the law. And Jarrett is already in the concession tossing shit. Like, poor Paul. Perennial straight-laced referee Paul Turner. And he's caught in the middle of this shit. Look, and it goes all goofy, and it's fine. And I love the fan. I love how close the fans were to this. Like, when they were doing, was it one of the parts of Anarchy in the Arena where the fans were super close? I don't remember. But there was recently another example of that where the fans were super close. They weren't corded off, like they were real close. And security was like, they were going bananas on them. I like it. I like that they're doing this. This is a way that AEW is different from WWE. When WWE does these, spills onto the concourse and into the backstage or whatnot, they push the audience aside, like they're far away. Whereas here, they're super close, and it adds to the energy and the wildness of the match here. As Mark even goes into the audience and they're pushing guys away, and it's fun, just nonsense. It's good. Karen Jarrett gets involved, of course. So does Sanjay, pushing Mark Briscoe off a ladder through a table. They fight into the picture-in-picture. Mark Briscoe's having a blast here, but he's so good in this type of match too, and he's really having a good time. Jay Lethal is also out there when they reach once they reach the ring. He tries to get a table set up, but he's blocked by Papa Briscoe. And we were in the Discord and was like, where the hell is Papa Briscoe? Well, there he was. He was hiding. He was under disguise. What is his disguise? You say? A hat. His disguise was a hat. Took off the hat. It was like, kind of like Clark Kent when he takes off his glasses. Like, oh shit! He being Papa Briscoe, not Clark Kent, takes out Sanjay and Jay Lethal, but he gets low blowed by Karen. Satnam Singh arrives, but so do Christopher Daniels, who apparently had a match on Ring of Honor because he was in gear. Best Friends and the Lucha Bros will team up to take him down. Then Penta goes into the ring to help Mark Briscoe out. Super kick onto Jeff Jarrett, which allows Mark to schoolboy Jarrett up for the win. See, this is one of these circumstances where, again, star ratings don't do the match justice. I mean, this was it's garbage. It's a garbage match, but it was so much fun, so... this is one of these. It's another match where I'm like, thankfully I don't do star ratings, because if you focus the star ratings on the work and crowd reaction and so on and so forth, and there wasn't anything really wrestling wise that was compelling about the match, but the energy, the goofiness of it, it was just a blast to watch. So then you end up, you give it a high star rating and you're like, oh, you're comparing this to Shingo versus Will Ospreay, After this, we get the Blackpool Combat Club backstage along with Konosuke Takeshita and Don Callis, hyping up their match for Forbidden Door 2. We've already talked about it, as well as Danielson calling out Okada, calling him a coward and saying, later on, I'm hitting the ring, but I know you're not here because you're a coward. I'm like, okay. This show is ending with a coin drop. I get it. And we get the Jericho Appreciation Society, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara teaming up with Minoru Suzuki, defeating Action Andretti, AR Fox, and Darius Martin. This match was really good, and it had some really good work in it as well. Got some fun little moments. Dante tries to slug it out with Minoru Suzuki. who does his best, Minoru Suzuki. Like, I hope, people are starting to realize that Minoru Suzuki is not like this super serious, untouchable, very, very, serious pillar of pro wrestling. I hope people are starting to see that because he knows where to mug. Did you see how much he ate up that hard cam during this match? He knows what to do. He does the stupid sex gods pose with Jericho, and he enjoys it. And if you go back into his back catalog of matches, there's all sorts of nonsense. People oftentimes treat him like he's this, like he's Katsuyori Shibata. But then again, even Katsuyori Shibata goofs off with Orange Cassidy. So everyone needs to fucking lighten up sometimes, is what I'm trying to say. Yes, Suzuki is this badass. He's over with in North America. People love him for being, this old guy who'll just chop the shit out of you, but also eat chops. He'll no-sell like he no-sold Darius Martin here. God bless him. Sammy feels like the odd man out in this match as, Jericho cozies up with Suzuki. Corkscrew brain buster by AR Fox. The Gotch pile driver by Suzuki. Jericho catches Darius off the top rope and into the walls of Jericho for the win. After the match, Renee Paquette gets in there. She's wearing the tallest shoes of all time. And I was wondering, did she get the memo that she should not be wearing shoes that make her taller than Chris Jericho? Ayo. Jericho calls out Sting, says he's selfish and egotistical, calls him a whore because he always goes to the highest bidder. And he challenges Sting and Darby Allin to a trios match at Forbidden Door. We've already talked about it. Sting comes out, he talks some shit, and Darby says they got the guy. Again, I am very much on the Tetsuya Naito crowd here on this one. I think that's what we're getting. And we get RJ City and Tony Schiavone, who are backstage pulling out names for the Blind Eliminator Tournament. It's Lethal Lottery! Boys and girls, holy shit! If you're gonna bring back, some of the great WCW shit, you might as well bring back some of the worst. And they pull out the names and they don't announce them. And I'm like, what the fuck? What are we doing? Well, look at these two guys here. And it's like, what? Are we? Then I'm like, is Schiavone going to start back up like the hotline? Is he going to do? Since we're leaning into the Lethal Lottery, might as well start back the WCW hotline. Let's bring those back. And Schiavone, instead of being Gene Okerlund, it's going to be Tony Schiavone who's going to be shilling it. He's going to, hey, you want to find out about, you want to find out who were the first two names to be pulled out of the Lethal Lottery for the Eliminator Tournament? Call now, 1-900. Might as well. We've got Lethal Lottery. What are we doing? So clearly this is going to be singles guys and tag matches. I don't know how to feel about that yet. Because again, this is one of these things that sort of irks me. It goes against my, my own personal wrestling sensibilities. I prefer tag teams to two singles guys being thrown together. The other place does it often, all the time, and they always end up winning. They always end up getting the championships, and it fucking bothers me. Because in my God honest opinion, it makes much more sense for tag team specialists to defeat two singles guys in a tag team match, right? And whenever two singles guys do become a thing, it should be few and far between. We've been poisoned with that with WWE for such a long time. It's been, a terrible trope of theirs. Is this going to be more creative? I'm going to pull an Alexa Bliss here and I'm going to let this play out. We're going to talk about it a little more in a second regardless. But I don't know how I feel. And you know there's going to be actual tag teams that are going to get pulled. Like, this is all kayfabe, right? This is all kayfabe. I thought they were going to be pulling out tag teams, but no, they're pulling out 2 guys at a time. So when I saw the lottery thing, the drum full of names, I was like, oh shit, it's the entire roster, isn't it? Fuck. We get the pre-tape of the Elite. It doesn't come off as a pre-tape, but it was a pre-tape because you know the story that the Elite didn't show up. That's because CM Punk was there. And look, let me just get this out of the way because this has also been a hot button issue, of the Elite not being there on location, not being there because CM Punk is going to show up. Now listen, if Tony Khan says, look, I have to promote this Collision show, fellas. I have to do some things on my Wednesday Night Dynamite show, which has the largest viewership of everything that I do. I have to promote it here somehow, and I got to get people to buy tickets at the same time. So you know what? Next Wednesday, you guys have the night off. CM Punk's going to come in to do an angle. I think that's, and we can get as conspiratory as we want, but I legitimately think that's what happened. Because you cannot blame Tony Khan for wanting to do that. Hell, he did it with Ring of Honor for how long? And Ring of Honor didn't even have TV. But he was promoting, and he still doesn't have TV, but before Honor Club is what I'm saying. And we'd be having the Ring of Honor crossover. And everyone's losing their shit because CM Punk shows up on Dynamite. And I'm like, I'm a promoter. I have to get people to watch my show on Saturdays. I want people to go out and buy tickets for my Saturday show. Well, let's drum up some interest. Let's keep this momentum going. I mean, it makes perfect sense to come in and already build matches for Collision. And I think the opposite should be available as well, to go in on Saturdays to build up matches for Wednesdays. So, if the idea, because look, we still don't know the nitty gritty. I think it is wise to assume that lawyers are still involved when it comes, in this entire story. So, if people have, legal documentation that prevents them from being in the same premises as the other people, well, okay, let's go for it. But from what we've heard, apparently the vibe, from what I heard, the vibe backstage last night was absolutely chill. That was the word I think that was used. The vibe was chill. Of course, you got the Japan guys coming in, and everyone's shaking hands and meeting and rekindling stories. The Elite weren't there. CM Punk was. Why would CM Punk come in and start making shit? And it's very likely that the people who are still on Dynamite, who were there last night and who do not necessarily care for CM Punk, they probably just avoided contact, which was probably the smartest thing to do. Maybe just like a polite hello, and that's about it. A lot of these people just want to work. A lot of these people just want to come to work. Anyway, so we get this segment here of the Elite accepting the BCC's challenge, making note that there's only 3 of them because Kenny's in a match. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to pull from the ensemble cast of AEW and bringing Eddie Kingston, who of course is fantastic. And it's only when once Eddie Kingston is not around that you realize how much you miss Eddie Kingston. And he comes in and he says, yeah, I'll be in here. I don't respect any of you. That's it. It's so funny to me. He just comes in and says, I don't respect any of you, but we've got a common enemy and I hate Claudio. That's essentially it. That's his prime motivation. Eddie Kingston is very primal. It's just like, I hate Claudio. Anyone who hates Claudio I'll tolerate y'all. If you're on Claudio's side, I don't like you. And then he says he's going to reveal who the fifth person is later on. And I had called it. I had figured that that's what they were going to do, and it's Tomohiro Ishii. We already know this because we talked about the match later. Adam Cole hits the ring. He's got a promo time. He says he didn't beat MJF, but neither did MJF. He didn't beat Adam Cole either. So he asks MJF to come out and accept a challenge for a rematch. MJF comes out, asks the audience to keep their poor mouths shut. He takes credit for bringing the best out of Adam Cole. I'd even give him some of that. I acquiesce. I'll give him credit for that. But he refuses the challenge for the rematch. Cole is ready to fight him right there and then. But Schiavone gets on the mic, and they both, in unison, say, "Shut up, Schiavone," because that's both their gimmick. It's both their thing. And I like that they were both surprised out of this. That was fun. It's like, I appreciate the idea that despite being a babyface, Adam Cole still doesn't like Tony Schiavone because of the Britt Baker stuff. I mean, that's some great beef. Let's go. Schiavone then tells them that their names were the first two that were picked from the Lethal Lottery. I'm going to call it Lethal Lottery. I'm sorry. It's way too much fun to call it Lethal Lottery for all that it entails. Of course, MJF and Adam Cole are not happy about it. I myself am kind of weirded out at it. Look, like I said, I'm going to see how this goes because I think there's a couple of interesting ways you can take this. Of course, I think the least interesting way is that Adam Cole and MJF end up becoming really, really a good tag team unit. And that's probably the story they're going to tell. They're going to become a really good tag team unit because they're great professional wrestlers and they're going to win the titles. That's the WWE way of doing things. So that's the one that I really don't care for. I think the other story that they will likely tell is that they'll probably fight FTR for the titles. But MJF is going to end up screwing up the victory for Adam Cole. I think that is the most likely scenario. But I'll tell you the one that I think would be the most interesting. Because it's a placeholder feud for MJF as we go to the main event, which is CM Punk. I am not deterring from this. I am on a straight course for this. I am immovable. As I've said multiple times, and I'm going to keep hammering this home, MJF and CM Punk is the match. That's the one you need to put on. That's the match that CM Punk owes MJF because he was supposed to drop the title to Max at Full Gear last year before all the shenanigans happened and he got hurt. That was supposed to happen. So CM Punk owes MJF a match, and not only a match, he owes him doing the JOB flat on its back, staring up at the lights. That's what needs to happen. And that is the big feud we're going towards. The thing with Adam Cole here, which I think has legs, I really do. I think this is already off to a very good start. I think it's a placeholder thing. I wouldn't be surprised that we get this blown off over the course of the summer, maybe I think this would be a fine main event for Wembley, if you ask me. Let's keep going here. This is the part that I think would be most interesting. The part that would be most interesting to me is that Adam Cole and MJF don't like each other. They're forced to be in this tag thing, but the more it progresses, the more they actually get to like each other. And Adam Cole turns full heel again, which I know people like to cheer for him, but Adam Cole is such a good fucking heel. I think that would be the more interesting dynamic. This would be the most interesting thing. Now, they might just blow this off in the first round of the tournament too, right? They might not even make it because MJF could absolutely just like fuck everything up in the first round of the tournament because he doesn't want to wrestle every week. He said it himself last night when he was complaining. He said he doesn't want to wrestle every week, so he could just blow this off in the first round, and he doesn't care. He's the world champion. That's another scenario. There's a bunch of little things that could happen here. But I think this is interesting, and it's an interesting wrinkle here. And it's a good way to continue to advance this story. I think tell your stories in the ring. That's what I always propone, right? Here we go. I can't hate it. But let's have this conversation in a few weeks. We'll see how much I like it still at that point. Hiroshi Tanahashi then shows up on the Tonytron, and he challenges MJF, tells him properly, says, look, you're going to see, how strong New Japan Pro Wrestling is. I'm the ace, But MJF still doesn't want to do it. Cole then suckers him into accepting the challenge, pushing his buttons and whatnot, calling him a coward, getting the audience to chant. So MJF accepts. So the story here as well is that Adam Cole is able to play MJF like a fiddle, as opposed to me, because this is not how you play a fiddle. I don't even know what instrument I'm playing right now. Like on a vertical thing here, doing boop, boop, boop. Maybe it's an EDM thing. No. Then we get the brackets for the Owen Hart tournament revealed. I think the men's side is very interesting. I think the men's side is very, very compelling, actually. Let me take a sip of water here. CM Punk and Satoshi Kojima, we already talked about it. That's happening this Sunday at Forbidden Door. Then everything else happens on Collision next Saturday. Not this upcoming Saturday, June 29. Roderick Strong versus Samoa Joe. Dustin Rhodes versus Powerhouse Hobbs. Juice Robinson versus Ricky Starks. Now, Roderick Strong versus Samoa Joe, I'm super stoked for. That should be a blast. And I think, conventional wisdom would tell you, well, it should be CM Punk and Samoa Joe in the semis on that part of the final. And everyone's going, oh, of course CM Punk is going to win this. Hear me out. The story of CM Punk and Samoa Joe, if you go back into their history, the seminal, important, the seminal indie wrestling feud, North American indie wrestling feud of the 2000s, CM Punk and Samoa Joe, the story behind it, what was that? The story behind it is that CM Punk can't beat Samoa Joe. That still permeates today. So, I don't think Samoa Joe versus CM Punk in the semifinals of the Owen Hart tournament is a lock. I think CM Punk in the finals of the tournament, winning the title, winning the tournament, the cup, the belt thing, winning that in Calgary as a Hart, an involuntary extended family member of the Harts, makes perfect sense, right? But hear me out. Samoa Joe beating CM Punk in this context also makes perfect sense. And then that leads you to the big blow off, where you can even add a little stipulation in there if you want. I think there's something to be said there. On the other side, Dustin Rhodes, Powerhouse Hobbs, Juice Robinson, Ricky Starks. Look, Ricky Starks is going to the finals here. But then again, so could Powerhouse Hobbs, right? I don't think Dustin's moving forward. Juice is there to eat pins. That's his role right now. It's fine. And he's so good at it. Juice Robinson is having a bit of a resurgence in North America, isn't he, right? Isn't he? I think so. Like, as far as fan appreciation goes, it makes you realize how fucking stale he had gotten in New Japan. Anyway, we knew he had gotten stale. It was a good move for him to move away from New Japan and try some other stuff out. But what he's doing here, and screaming at the top of his lungs and being so, over the top cartoonish, It's really giving him a resurgence. Anyway, back to the brackets. I think Powerhouse Hobbs could end up in the finals as well. Because he's a CM Punk guy. Punk likes him at the very least, and so does Ricky Starks, though. Starks is the bigger star. But whatever we're getting a rekindling of the Ricky Starks Powerhouse Hobbs situation, which I'm entirely for. And I would love Ricky Starks to be able to properly overcome Powerhouse Hobbs here. Just as Powerhouse Hobbs moving forward would be exciting nonetheless. So do you have them go to the finals against Samoa Joe or CM Punk? I'll tell you this. If Samoa Joe goes forward, it's Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks is your man. You want the baby face. But again, I can't help but remove myself from, the Bret Hart Love Show, which is CM Punk, right? I can't remove myself from him going into Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and not standing tall at the end with the Owen Hart. One thing that I'm disappointed in is that there are not more Japanese dudes here. Because they made a point of it when they pulled it out and they were talking about the Owen Hart starting at Forbidden Door. It's like it's a great place to start off because, Owen's legacy is also tied to New Japan. Why don't we have more New Japan guys in here? Keep some of the lightweights. Keep some of the juniors. I understand you can't keep on. You've got 32 guys that are about to kick ass for the G1. I understand you don't want to bring all these guys over and have them hang around for a couple of weeks, but it's not even a couple of weeks. It's 1 week. They're all closing this up on the 29th. You could have kept. You could have brought over Hiromu Takahashi for this. For real. You could have kept Naito around for this as well. Let's get this connection in here. So there's interesting things. If I'm calling it today, I'm calling Ricky Starks. I feel would be the more compelling answer. But again, I can't but not expect CM Punk in Heartland. I cannot not see him winning this. Then on the women's side, we have Britt Baker and Ruby Soho. Anna JAS versus Sky Blue. Athena versus Billy Starks. That's happening at the pre-show for Forbidden Door. And Nyla Rose versus Willow Nightingale. This one is... I think also this one is a little more clear-cut when we say, at least for the people advancing, right? I would think that Britt Baker is going to go forward, and probably Sky Blue. She's on a little bit of a... Tony's giving her a little bit of a push here. So I think that would be a safe bet. Although, I would absolutely see Ruby Soho, the Outcast costing Britt the match forward here, right? Which is also possible. Nyla and Willow, I'm excited to see this match. That's going to be this Saturday at Collision. That's happening this weekend as well. I'm excited to see that match because I think they're going to work really well with each other. And Athena and Billy Starks, I don't think anyone should sleep on that. I think it's going to rule. So I think out of this, we've got Athena and Willow Nightingale who are going to move forward, right? I'm going to go with Britt and Sky Blue moving forward. And then in the finals, you know what? Let's do Britt and Willow. I think that's a good crowd pleaser. And I think Britt wins. Or if you want to delve into some story, if Ruby Soho does indeed, use the Outcast to get one over Britt, well, she goes to the finals. And then you have Willow and Ruby. Former friends, enemies, in the finals for this. I find it difficult for heels to win this, despite the fact that last year it was 2 heels, but they were sort of presented as baby faces at the end, the couple and whatnot. But I still find it's weird for heels to win the Owen Hart Cup. Anyway, I'm going to try and speed this up. I don't want to overstay my welcome here. Daniel Garcia and Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Katsuyori, Shibata, and Orange Cassidy. I thought this was very good, probably my match of the night. I thought good mix of shenanigans, nonsense, and good pro wrestling. I think we got a good mixture of all of that. We get Garcia and Zack Sabre Jr. who cycle through Orange Cassidy's limbs with double team limb work. They're going from leg to arm to leg. Stupid, but fun little spot. Orange Cassidy and Shibata do stereo corner drop kicks, which I thought was pretty dope. But the match ends when Orange Cassidy accidentally punches not Kris Statlander, but Katsuyori Shibata, which allows, because I peek behind the curtain. I use initials instead of full names when I'm doing my notes. So it's OC, it's KS, so Katsuyori Shibata, but then I see KS, and I'm like, I still have. I thought of Kris Statlander because I still have to talk about that match. So that's why I got confused. Trust me, I can tell Kris Statlander and Katsuyori Shibata apart. Thank you. Anyway, that's it. Orange punch on Shibata, which is an accident, which allows Garcia to get the win, while Zack Sabre Jr. leg locks Orange Cassidy, keeping him from going in to break up the pin. Great finish. I thought the finish was awesome. Great finish. And then they all took out the belt, which sets up the 4-way for this weekend. We've already talked about that. AEW TBS title match is up next. Kris Statlander defeated Taya Valkyrie. I thought this was fine, and we're just going to leave it there. I really hope we're ready to move on from this, because Taya ain't doing it for me. And I thought she had some bright spots, but I think she's not doing it for me. And the roster is too deep of excellent women to just be settling for half-ass performances here. And you know what? That moonsault over the knee backbreaker that Statlander did, off the apron, that's a choice for someone whose both knees basically are destroyed. I wouldn't recommend doing that anymore. And I hope someone backstage went up and said, hey, you know what, Kris, don't do that. Don't do that. Anyway, like I said, hopefully we can move on. Then it ends with the final segment. Eddie Kingston is already in the ring. Yes, this whole thing felt rushed. Yes, it did. He reminds everyone that he has problems with Claudio, and he's told this to Mox in the past, how much he hates Claudio. Mox comes in to confront Eddie, but they don't come to blows. Mox, and him trade some. Mox and Eddie trade some words, and Eddie finally is like, you know what? I don't have time for this. It's Tomohiro Ishii, the 5th guy, who comes out to a big reaction, because of course everyone in North America loves fucking Tomohiro Ishii. Is it me, or is Ishii more over in North America than he is in Japan? I think he is, and good for him. That's not a knock. Ishii comes to the ring. He gets punked out by the rest of the BCC. So does Eddie. And that leaves Danielson alone in the ring, and who calls out Kazuchika Okada. Says, you're a coward, you're whatever. And he's about to stomp Ishii's head in. And suddenly we get the coin drop. Place goes bananas. Huge. Oh yeah, no one knows who this guy is, right? I think I haven't seen that discussion this year. Isn't that weird? Isn't that strange that I haven't heard any discussion over the fact that no one knows who Kazuchika Okada is, right? But we get the coin drop. Danielson and Okada stand face to face, and you know what? Okada looks like $1 million. You know what? You know when we sometimes talk about star power? You know when we talk about Dominic? And say Dominic comes out and he just looks like a dope and he has no presence. He doesn't know how to command anything. Our boy Kazuchika Okada came out in fucking jeans, in a t-shirt, sneakers, didn't have the gear, didn't have the regalia. And he still came across as a major fucking superstar. The biggest deal on the planet. This is why, this is the kind of, is it unfair to compare Dominic to Kazuchika Okada? Okay, sure. Because Okada is a 1 in a million kind of, he's a 1 in a million type of dude. But this is what I mean when we talk about people who don't own the room, who don't have the presence, who don't understand how pro wrestling works, and why people, lose their shit over Dominic. When the guy doesn't have the presence, he's got nothing. He's just got irony behind him. He's a meme. Whereas I see Kazuchika Okada come down to the ring, stand face to face with Daniel Bryan, and I'm like, Bryan Danielson, excuse me. And I'm like, this is my main event. This is what I'm excited to see. This is what makes this match feel special. This is it right here. These two guys and their auras. Yes, years of building their auras. But still, this is where we're at. This is what we're getting. We're getting an all-timer of a match. Perennial. Danielson avoids a Rainmaker, but poor Wheeler Yuta. He ate it. He ate the Rainmaker so hard. Okada stands tall. Dynamite ends with Kazuchika Okada standing tall in the ring. What more do you want out of pro wrestling? And we're going to wrap it up for today. I'm going to wrap this up. I hope you had a good time listening to this review. If you haven't already, a like, a review, a rating, all those stuffs will be great. I will be back Sunday for my Collision review. I will be on location. I will have seen the Collision live at the Scotiabank Center. So the next day I will bring you some thoughts. I will not have been tainted by any television production. So that'll be interesting. And otherwise I will be back on Tuesday for another full edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, where of course we're going to be reviewing Forbidden Door 2, amongst other things. But in the meantime, I hope everyone has a great rest of their week. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.